Hello, you're watching A News. I'm Bakir Sanov, and let's see the headlines. South Korean President's surprise martial law declaration sparks chaos in Seoul. MPs begin impeachment proceedings. France's government faces no confidence votes that could spell the end of the short-lived administration of Prime Minister Michel Barnier. COP16 continues in Saudi Arabia's Riyadh. Participants are calling for strong cooperation to address desertification and land degradation. South Korea's MPs begin impeachment proceedings against President Yoon Suk-yeol. It's after the head of state's surprise martial law declaration, which sparked chaos in Seoul on Tuesday.
Thousands of people protested in South Korea's capital after the unexpected martial law declaration by the country's president. It triggered the biggest political crisis in decades in Asia's fourth largest economy. Just a few hours after the declaration, Yoon Suk-yeol reversed his decision. It's after the parliament unanimously voted to lift the decree.
After the National Assembly's demand to lift martial law troops have been withdrawn. I will accept the National Assembly's demand and lift martial law through a cabinet meeting.
Now South Korea's ruling People Power Party calls for Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun's dismissal and the resignation of the entire cabinet. The opposition Democratic Party is calling the move a breach of constitutional order. They argue that the martial law declaration was an abuse of power and are calling for stronger actions to hold the president accountable.
Even if martial law is lifted, he cannot avoid treason charges. It was clearly revealed to the entire nation that President Yoon can no longer run the country normally.
By Wednesday morning, protests continued outside the National Assembly, led by South Korea's largest labor union group, the Korean Confederation of Trade Union. They say they'll continue demonstrating until the president resigns. Many residents are anxious after the last 24 hours of political turmoil. Some express fear for the future of the country, while others are still trying to comprehend the impact of such an unprecedented move.
It was an experience that I have only seen in movies, and I realized how much more serious it is than I had imagined. The current economic condition is difficult, and the fact that the president is causing such anxiety among residents makes the situation so much worse. I'm deeply disturbed by this kind of situation, and I'm very concerned about the future of this country.
Last night I happened to wake up from my sleep and came across the news. At first I was scared and very confused. I kept thinking, what's going on? Is this something that could actually happen in this era? I couldn't sleep until the martial law was lifted because I was so frightened.
South Korea's financial markets have been volatile, with the won hitting a 2-year low and stocks falling. While the government has promised to take measures to stabilize the economy, the political uncertainty continues to affect public confidence.
The situation remains tense in Georgia, where protests over the government's suspension of European Union accession talks have entered their 6th day. Nearly 300 demonstrators have been arrested, while clashes between protesters and police in Tbilisi have left dozens injured.
Thousands of protesters gathered again outside Georgia's parliament in Tbilisi Tuesday night, demanding the government resume talks on European Union membership. Demonstrators and police clashed after throwing fireworks and using laser beams, while authorities responded with tear gas and water cannons. As tensions escalate, 20 more protesters were arrested, bringing the total number of arrests to 298. Additionally, 143 police officers have been injured, according to authorities. The Prime Minister describes the protest as an attempt to ignite a revolution, such as Ukraine's 2014 Maidan uprising, and he calls for calm.
So the attempt to organize the Maidan in Georgia is already over. I would call everybody to keep quiet, let's say, and to keep peace in this country. So we are responsible for that. I can assure everybody that there will be peace in this country.
The protests first erupted last Thursday night after the government's decision to suspend EU accession negotiations until 2028.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan and his German counterpart Annalena Baerbock held discussions on pressing international developments, including the situations in Syria, Gaza and Ukraine. The meeting took place on the sidelines of the NATO foreign ministers' meeting in Brussels. Germany's foreign ministry says Turkey is strategically important in addressing regional crises, calling the country a key player in the region. The NATO meeting in Brussels is expected to continue addressing key security challenges, with discussions focusing on collective defense and regional stability. Russia views Ukraine's potential full membership in NATO as unacceptable because it would pose a security threat. That's according to Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. He told reporters that the idea of Ukraine joining NATO is an absolute contrast to Russia's position on the indivisibility of security. He says the security of one country cannot come at the expense of another. Peskov also argued that the prospect of NATO membership doesn't address the root cause of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Earlier, the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry said that they will not accept any alternatives or substitutes for Kiev's full NATO membership, arguing that this is the only real security guarantee for the country. Meanwhile, Russian military launched hypersonic missiles during naval and air force drills in the eastern Mediterranean. Russian authorities said that hypersonic missile launches were conducted during the drills, which involved the warships, auxiliary ships, submarines and fighter jets. Officials stated that all the launches successfully hit their targets. Russian Defense Ministry says more than 1,000 military personnel participated in the drills. In France, the National Assembly is set to debate two no-confidence motions on Wednesday, certain to oust the fragile coalition of Prime Minister Michel Barnier. It's after he made a decision to overstep Parliament to pass the social security budget.
A no-confidence vote in the French Assembly could spell the end of a short-lived administration of Prime Minister Michel Barnier. It's over Barnier's actions on Monday which saw the Premier force through the social security budget without a vote. Barnier's budget seeks to rein in France's spiralling public deficit through 60 billion euros in tax hikes and spending cuts. But it's been opposed by politicians from both the left and far right. The far-right national rally of Marine Le Pen is expected to vote for the motion put forward by the left, giving it enough numbers to pass. The Prime Minister says ousting him from power might worsen the political situation in the country.
The situation is difficult in terms of the budget, in terms of finance. I'm also very vigilant when it comes to financial markets, which I know quite well. It's very difficult in economic and social terms, as I've just said. One thing I'm sure of, Mr. Chassaigne, and keep what I say today in mind, is that the vote of no confidence, when we see each other again, will make everything more difficult and more serious.
If Barnier's government falls, 63% of polls say they would be in favour of French President Emmanuel Macron resigning. However, Macron rejects calls to resign and calls such a scenario political fiction. Some French people believe the recent snap election was a bad decision by Macron.
Yes, it was a loss from the start, so I thought this would happen sooner. So yes, I was expecting it, and it would be a real catastrophe for the country.
Barnier will be the first French government to be forced out by a no-confidence vote in more than 60 years, at a time when the country is struggling to tame a budget deficit.
The Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, or OCCRP, is known for its high-profile investigations, including the Panama Papers. However, recent reports by Mediapart and other sources raise questions about its funding and independence.
According to Mediapart, OCCRP operates with an annual budget of 20 million euros, employing 200 people. Over the past decades, it received 52% of its funding, totaling $47 million from the US government. Additionally, $15.2 million came from the EU and other European governments, while $24.9 million was provided by individuals and private foundations. Mediapart also reports that OCCRP received $2.2 million from the US State Department between 2015 and 2019 for a project titled Balancing the Russian Media Space. Another $1.7 million was allocated from 2019 to 2023 for strengthening investigative journalism in Eurasia, focusing on regions such as Russia, China, and Central Asia. The US Department of State provided $2.3 million for a project in Malta and Cyprus to expose corruption and enhance investigative journalism, as detailed in federal funding records. This program was renewed in September 2023 with an additional $1.3 million. These regions are widely known for attracting Russian oligarchs, according to the report. OCCRP participated in the Cyprus confidential investigation coordinated by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. The investigation focused on alleged financial misconduct and sanctions breach in Cyprus. On 14 November 2023, Cyprus announced official investigations into claims of sanctions violations, with the findings published in collaboration with OCCRP. 3 weeks later, teams from the FBI and FENSIN arrived in Cyprus to assist, according to official statements. Mediapart's investigation includes statements from OCCRP founder Drew Sullivan, who acknowledged that OCCRP avoids reporting on US-related issues due to restrictions tied to funding from the US government and the Open Society Foundations. USAID reportedly refers to OCCRP as a partner organization and has oversight over projects and editorial leadership as outlined in public records. According to the same reports, several journalists who contributed to uncovering these connections have alleged threats from the OCCRP's leadership. These claims have been reported by Mediapart and other investigative outlets. The questions raised by these findings underscore the complex relationship between investigative organizations and their funding sources. As these revelations continue to unfold, OCCRP's role in global journalism remains a point of intense debate.
The Middle East, once often overlooked in climate discussions, now has the opportunity to have its voice heard. The MENA region has long struggled with diversification, and hosting COP16 offers a platform to assert its leadership in finding solutions. Our correspondent Narchechek Jahangirli has more from COP16 venue in Riyadh.
An atmosphere reminiscent of tents set up in the desert is complemented by the trees and the bushes inside the venue, which attributes a hope, something that we expect from the land negotiations.
The ambience at the COP16 venue in Riyadh speaks volumes about the significance of this event. People are welcomed by vibrant decorative tents and prayer rooms that reflect Saudi Arabia's unique blend of tradition and modernity.
So having it happening here, it creates more awareness to the community in Saudi Arabia, but also to the world globally. People can understand even in areas with prone or threat to desertification, there's still efforts can happen. I've gone around Saudi Arabia and I've seen a lot of efforts that are happening to combat desertification.
Has to have a policy, one policy, and it has to be something that we can work with, something that will be successful. And there are lots of challenges, of course they are here, but I think that it is important to work together.
Saudi Arabia's role as a host is more than symbolic. Many cultural elements not only provide functional spaces but also emphasize the kingdom's commitment to integrating sustainability with its rich heritage. However, it also gives a very strong message. Collaboration is the key.
So I think it's wonderful that they're voicing their support for the mission of UNCCD by hosting COP16 this year. But I think land degradation is a global issue that, you know, not just one country or one region is facing.
COP16 in Riyadh is not just a regional event, it's a global call to action. The unique atmosphere of COP16 serves as a reminder that the solutions to these challenges must be collaborative, innovative, and inclusive of those who have lived with them firsthand.
It's day 2 of the G20 summit in South Africa. The conference will focus on helping to finance nations stricken by climate-induced disasters and extending debt relief to developing countries. It's the first African country to lead the forum set to bolster economic cooperation.
Good morning, Mr. President.
At the G20 in Cape Town, there are delegates from 19 sovereign nations, the European Union and the African Union. The main focus of the summit is to look at financing nations that are recovering from the impacts of climate change. President Cyril Ramaphosa says they'll also look at debt relief of developing countries.
We must take action to ensure debt sustainability for your low-income countries. A key obstacle to inclusive growth is in developing economies, including in our own African countries, is an unsustainable level of debt which continues to limit their ability to invest in infrastructure, in healthcare, in education, and other development needs.
South Africa also plans to push for fairer benefits from critical minerals mined in Africa and greater financing for renewable energy. The G20 summit will be hosted in Johannesburg next November.
Researchers at Turkey's Middle East Technical University have unveiled a groundbreaking solution to one of the most persistent challenges smartphone users face: charging. The team has developed a microelectromechanical system device that could extend smartphone charging cycles to as long as 1 year. The project, led by Baruch Bayram and the research assistant Bere Vize from university's Electrical and Electronics Engineering Department, was carried out at the Ultra MEMS Research Laboratory. The groundbreaking technology mimics the functionality of the human brain to process information with remarkable energy efficiency. The research, which took 4 years to complete, is currently undergoing a patent application process. Thank you. That's all we have for now, and keep watching A News.